super quick video here on the M276 motor. When you're removing the intake manifold, what I like to do is hook it up to a trickle. But just real quick video, guys, I marked everything in green on what you have to remove. Hardest one is that lower vacuum line right there. You're gonna have to remove this upper one right here, this bigger guy. Just squeeze and pull back, just because it won't give you enough access if you don't remove that to get that lower one out. Okay, then we're just gonna move this way, connector right here. Another vacuum line right here. Sensor connector right there. Vacuum line right here. Underneath the intake manifold is going to be your throttle body connector, which is right there. That's going to be your throttle body connector, and with a little clip that holds the harness in place. Okay, then you're going to have this pipe here with the seal that you have to replace, vacuum pipe. Then you're going to undo that little, I think it's a T20. Then you have another vacuum line that goes right here. Undo that guy. Then you're going to have another sensor that goes right there. Then you're going to have two of the, what I like to use for these guys, by the way, is a little skinny E11. They're all E11s, right? So one there, two in here, and two in here. There's gonna be one there and one there. You're gonna need a long reach magnet to get them out. Unclip this right here. I keep the air filter box attached. I don't remove it. And then as we move around here, you're gonna have one connector right there and one connector right here. You don't have to remove this bracket here. You just have to use a long flathead very carefully to pry that back. And then it's, see how it's off, just enough room. So that's in a nutshell how to take the intake manifold off. Sometimes when you have an older vehicle and that vacuum line is literally like molded to it, what I do is I just remove the Torx. I believe it's a T25. I use a little tiny ratchet like this, and then that way I just pull the line out attached with the little plastic piece that goes inside the vacuum pump. Because if you keep pulling on this with like needle nose pliers, you'll break the line right where that red Milwaukee sign is, and then you gotta do this anyway. So it comes out just like that with the little seal. It's nice to replace that little rubber seal that you see there, but I don't have it, so I'm just not gonna do that. Just make sure it's not damaged when you put it back in. You see it came out right there. It's gonna be a little bit of oil that will come out there. It's not a problem. Just when you put this back in, spray some brake cleaner on there, clean that off, and you should be okay. I also want to show you how the routing goes for these vacuum lines back here. So the reason you can't remove it there is because there's a T. It tees off to go to this valve, so you can't remove the line from this end. You have to physically remove it from that end right there. But that's how it goes. It goes through this little tiny loop right there, like that, over, around the back here, front rather, top side rather, and then it goes like this. There's two T's. It splits off, goes down, it's a pretty, the way they have it laid out. These little tiny channels goes down into below here in that way. These right here, you're going to want to replace these little seals. There's 6 of them. So every time replace these. And yeah, you can see the whole box is together in one piece. Okay, so when you get to 6, you're going to remove the coil and just inspect it, make sure there's no cracks on this boot part. You can replace these separately, by the way. You don't have to buy the whole coil if there's like a tear or something. And then label your plug just so you know which one came out of which cylinder. And then what you're going to do is remove your dipstick, throw your harness on the other side of that dipstick to give you enough room to get those 2 bolts and that coil out. And what I use to get the coil out is this little pick tool on these vice grips. So all you do is you reach under there like this, and then while you're pulling on this with your hand, pull on this top part together and wiggle it out carefully, and eventually it will pop out. What you don't want to do is only pull on here, because then what will happen is you'll separate it right there. You're going to separate this, and then this will be stuck in there, and then it's very hard to get this out. And for sure you're going to damage this when you're pulling on it with some long needle nose. For those back 2 bolts over here, unless you want to lose the bolts and risk it, try to drop them in there. What I do is I just use a little magnetized bit holder, and I go by hand first. I feel it by hand, and then I go in with the Torx. Another thing I recommend you guys do is take a look at your old plugs. Make sure that there's no like whitening. Whitening would mean substantial overheat. This one looks fine. I also like to label the old plugs and save them to know which cylinder they came out of, as well as I like to label the coil pack as well. So to get coil 2 out, you're going to have to remove that little bracket there. So you're going to have to just take out this, it's a Torx T20, I believe, and you'll be able to get that bracket out so that you have enough room to remove this coil here. Cylinder, I think this is cylinder 5. By the way, when you guys lift this DMV assembly up, you don't have to disconnect this large plug. You can leave it as it is, don't even touch it. There's 1 plug there, 1 plug there, and 2 on the bottom. And you don't even have to move that big plug. The 2 on the bottom, there's 1 center clip, and then there's 2 plugs on the bottom. They're just like rubber grommets, and all you do is just pull up on the DME and like move it off, like move it a little bit this way to the side, and then this thick cable, you're gonna want to put over the dipstick tube here, just so you can have access, because obviously, I mean, look at this. You have to get access to 4, 5, and 6. Otherwise, it's impossible. This little tube, you can leave connected here. You can leave this connected. You just have to disconnect over here and here from the intake manifold. You can leave this connected here. You don't have to actually remove this completely from the car. These little tabs, obviously, they just, you push them forward, press, and then pull off the coil. The hardest thing, obviously, is to get the coil with the boot out in one piece, but if you follow that method that I showed you, you won't have any issue. So the driver's side is complete. Now we're going to be transferring over to the passenger side. Once again, just E8 to remove the coil packs. This side is a lot easier, obviously, because you have a lot more room to work with. But again, I just wanted to show you to remove these coil packs. Don't just pull on this top section, because you'll break the coil pack here. So get some sort of pick. Go like that. And then while you're tugging here, you're gonna slightly also lift here at the same time, and it'll come out. Inspect your harness for any kind of oil. They're very common to get oil in the harness. What else? Inspect the wiring, connectors, make sure nothing's torn. And yeah. So there's one grommet there, a metal clip, and one grommet there underneath your DME. So I'm trying to show you guys so you know. Here's one right there, and there's the other one down there, and then in the middle there's that clip that slides in there. So that's all it is. No bolts or anything that you have to remove. So now air filter, pretty self-explanatory. Go ahead and vacuum that stuff out, by the way. Here's the new one, old one, and then it's just 3 bolts, screws, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, right here at the top. And then I don't connect this piece until the end, but you can connect it now if you want. It's just easier to get this on before this is attached, because it goes at the bottom, you'll see. Here's the old seals that you remove. Now that this is all clean, what I do is I set the intake manifold separate from the airbox, obviously, and then what I like to do is connect from the back. I like to connect the rear, this vacuum pipe here, I like to connect first to right here and backtrack from here this way. Okay, so next you're gonna, by the way, the plugs are all done. I think these get torqued down to 8 Newton meters. I believe that's what I had it set on. Just make sure that it's fully seated. Press here. When you're putting these back in, you're gonna want to press right here so that it seats on the plug correctly. And then you do your 2 clips, 1 clip there, 1 clip there. These gaskets, they have a little notch on the bottom that sits. You'll see on the bottom there's going to be a little notch like right here, and you got to make sure that it's in the notch correctly and seated. And then at this point you're going to put the intake manifold back on, but first we're going to clean the throttle body. Once you guys put the intake manifold back on, I'm not going to go through all the points again that you have to connect, but what I wanted to say was, don't just like plop it in there and like start like pressing down like hard, you know what I'm saying? Like it should go in very easily. Like make sure that this hose right here is not pinched up against this wiring loom, right? And just like literally take your time, because what you don't want to do is connect the intake manifold and then have a leak, like a lean mixture fault code because one of your 6 seals is not sealed properly. It should, like, you'll feel it, like you need very little effort for this to sit on there and like not move, not even bolted down, you know what I'm saying? So just take your time, and then on this side, once again, you just connect that connector, and then just go around. I'll put the airbox in next. Those 2 bolts there, those 2 bolts there, and that's it. I mean, this is a very easy job, but it's very easy to like fuck it up, you know what I'm saying? Like if somebody's doing it who's not done it before, or just like rushing through it, it's easy to mess up. So as long as you like take your time and don't break any of the connectors, don't break any of the like the wiring or these like brittle, you know, vacuum tubes, you gotta be like super gentle with them. Just take your time and you'll be fine. By the way, on these vacuum, I'm sorry, not vacuum, but do you see with the intake manifold in place how difficult it is to get to the coils? I mean, it's possible. It's right there, right? You see it? I marked the bolts green, by the way, after I torque them. But it's possible, but look, like, how are you going to get those out? You're just going to have it'll take you twice as long versus if you just remove the intake manifold. So last but not least, what I'd like to do is a fault scan report. I know we got an issue with the backup camera. I'll figure that out another day. But before starting the vehicle, I always like to run the fault codes. That way, if you get a fault code for like a engine control module or a coil or something like that, you'll know, or a sensor, like a temperature sensor, you'll know that it's unplugged. You know what I'm saying? Like before you start the vehicle. So, but that's just something that I do. You don't have to do this. By the way, really nice little tool from Launch. It's a gear scan. It's like super cheap. It's like 120 bucks, and it's like really good. So, right, so the new drain plug is in. I like to just clean off the oil pan area and mark the drain plug. There's a new copper washer, just so that you know it's torqued to spec. I torque these only to 25 Newton meters. So, and the top, by the way, I misspoke. The top oil filter housing cap, I torque down to only 20 Newton meters, so even less. You really don't have to tighten these down a lot because you don't have to. Anyway, check the suspension. All the bushings look good. The axle boot looks like it was replaced. On this side, the suspension looks good. Also, the axle boot looks new. Common on these to leak. Okay, put the under tray back on and we're done. For the oil filter, new oil filter, just make sure you use a quality one. This one's out of Germany, it looks like. E129HD222. So it goes right in here. There's also an O-ring on it, brand new. Start off by hand. And this only gets torqued to about 10 Newton meters. The drain bolt, after you remove your middle part of your engine cover, I'll show you in a second. You're gonna remove the 13 millimeter, loosen it by hand, put your pan underneath. I'm trying to get you guys a good angle, but there you go. I want to get oil all over. And then you're going to want to let that drain. Make sure the car is as level as possible during the drain process. You're also going to want to replace the little, there's like a little washer on there, crush washer. And yeah. So there it goes. It's not too bad. Looks like it was recently changed. Should be like a golden brown color at your intervals if you're getting like dark oil. It's, you just pushed it too far. So on here there should be a crush washer. Yeah, which we have to remove and then put a new one on there. All right, so the oil's finishing up draining. Believe it or not, the drain plug that was in there had no copper washer on it. So I had to go and I just bought a new one like this from FCP Euro. It comes with the washer as well, so we're just gonna slide that guy in there and be done with it. Bolts, I start them by hand, and then I just use it's a little Milwaukee 5/16 to finish them off, and it's also magnetic, so it's nice if you oh, wrong way. There you go. It's nice if you want to put them in the housing. That one's stripped. That's okay. Somebody over tightened these before me. And that's why it clicks like that. It's supposed to lock in like that. But somebody ended up over tightening these. Quite a bit. So for the oil, I like to use the 530 with ester from O'Toole, the 300V. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's just a better quality oil. So you're not even spending that much more money. It's a nice little funnel I got going. So the capacity is 6.5 liters. Real quick here, guys, for the cabin air filter LAK413, right underneath, all you do is get a T20 Torx bit on an impact. You're gonna remove 1, 2, 3. You're gonna remove a connector here, just pull and pull up, You're gonna have a connector here, just press and pull out. That's gonna be this connector here and this connector right here. Then you're gonna go ahead and remove these two little tabs. A lot of times they won't be there because the previous guy was rushing, but they should be right here. They clip in like that to the side. All you do is you just take a little pry tool, you pry up here, just pop this off on this side. They're on both sides. As you can see, this filter is way past its replacement, and it should have been done a while ago. Here's the new one. So simply just put it back into its position and put the cover back on. This little, I always put a towel down because I don't want leaves and stuff to drop down. But what you do is, as you can see, the carpet, you have to pull back. So you just take it up here and just pull that whole carpet back. And then that way it will allow you to remove that upper cover and place it out here. So that's it. Super easy, simple. All right, so the cover's back on. There's gonna be a little hook around this area that you just have to reach in with your hand, bend out, press, and it will clip in. Otherwise, this slides behind this little trim panel, flush there, and behind this little trim panel here. All the bolts are in with those two clips in the filter. And this simply presses back like this, and your carpet. What I also like to do is, before putting the intake manifold back on, I like to replace the air filter and also clean the throttle body. So to do that, to do the throttle body, first of all, you just undo this clip, you pry up right here, it'll come off, and then remove your air filter box from the throttle body. Then you're going to remove this little, I believe this is like a, honestly, maybe a charcoal canister of some sort, or maybe it's for a vacuum. Anyway, you're gonna have to remove this. It's 2 bolts. They're both Torx T20s, I believe, the small ones. Then you're gonna remove this little bracket, 4 bolts. Also T20s, or T25s, don't quote me on that. Knife comes off. Here's the bolts. And then we're gonna clean this throttle body up to make sure that it's nice and clean. It's not bad actually, but might as well do it. You can see there's some buildup over there. All right, so that's nice and clean now. Both sides have been cleaned. And what I like to use is this throttle body and intake cleaner.